Have you ever watched a friend drift away? It might start subtly with a shift in interest or social circles. But as that change becomes deeper, a question comes up. Do we cling to the past or accept the evolution of the friendship and just move on? This is a question that fans of franchises and IPs are also forced to ask themselves from time to time, and especially so in recent years. Never would I have thought when I first started happily playing Wargroove in 2019 that this is exactly how I would feel with the sequel just a few years later. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying this is going to be a bit different from other content on my channel. Basically, instead of exploring whatever happened to, we're going to be exploring what happened to. So today I wanted to talk about a new game that just came out, Wargroove 2. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the game, Wargroove is a turn-based strategy game much in the vein of your Fire Emblems or Advanced Wars. Now, I would consider myself a huge fan of the first one, and in fact, so much that my first ever YouTube video, I made an over hour-long analysis deep dive into it. In my opinion, it's kind of incredible that these type of games still exist and are in the public consciousness, but after some time with this game, I was honestly shocked to see review after review giving this title glowing praise. And I'm just got to get to the heart of it here. To me, this sequel felt deeply disappointing on a few fundamental levels. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to call this a money grab, but I just want to raise some discussion points for the community because I'm honestly a bit shocked at the amount of positive praise there was for this. So let's discuss what happened to Wargroove 2. Hello everyone, my name is Otto and welcome to Exits Examined. Join me as we explore the lives of individuals, products, media, and more after their prime time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a subscribe button below. So to understand Wargroove 2, let's make sure we're all on the same page about Wargroove 1. Wargroove is a strategy tactics video game developed and published by Chucklefish, released in 2019. Games are played in a turn-based style as you take turns leading your army against an AI or human opponent. There's also a very basic resource management system here where each village or town the player controls will give you a certain amount of funds for which you can then buy new unit types with. The game draws heavy, and I mean heavy, influence from the handheld tactical video games from the early 2000s. And to be specific here, Advanced Wars. The hype surrounding Wargroove 1 was very real because the last time Advanced Wars came out was in 2003, leaving a 16-year-old sized black hole in strategy-loving millennials everywhere. Well, unless they played the DS sequel, Dual Strike and Days of Ruin, in which case it was a 13-year-old sized black hole. But people tend to remember Advanced Wars on the Game Boy Advanced most memorably. As far as the nitty-gritty of the game, the story was definitely nothing to write home about, although there was a lot of charm, care, and love that was put into it. Essentially, it felt like a bit of a long, tedious tutorial with a few memorable scenarios and limited replayability. But that was okay, because the meat of the game was the charm and, more importantly, the gameplay, which it had in spades. There was all types of good stuff in here, from multiplayer, arcade, puzzle modes, and more. The gameplay is easy enough to pick up, even for newcomers to the genre, but complex enough for more serious players to have something to really latch onto. And that's not to mention the free, yes, free DLC, which sadly enough didn't add a new faction, did add a co-op campaign and new buildings and units. Honestly, this game felt like a love letter to the Advanced Wars games and a passion project that just oozed charm. The game was well received and nominated for a few Game of the Year awards. Currently in 2023, it has a very positive ranking on Steam, with a lot of players praising the gameplay, customizable content, and general aesthetics. So with all of this, it's no surprise that a sequel was announced. So all sounds good, right? Right? Wargroove 2 released on October 5th, 2023, and was developed by German indie game studio Robotality. After working in partnership with Chucklefish for many years on Halfway and Pathway, Robotality were handed the reins, which seemed a bit surprising to me. I do know that Chucklefish has a lot going on, but I wonder what happened behind the scenes that led them to give their IP to another studio, even if it is one that they have a pretty close partnership with. So let's get into it. What exactly is this game packing? Of course, first and foremost is the campaign. The story offers 4 new campaigns, technically 5 if you count the tutorial, featuring returning factions and also a brand new one. Each campaign focuses on a distinct combat style. You have one that emphasizes ground troops, the Felheim campaign that introduces aerial units, and the Outlaw Island campaign, which focuses on naval warfare, to name a few. Additionally, the game features a new conquest mode with exclusive maps, bonuses, and characters. Essentially, it's like a roguelike smashed together with a Fire Emblem type, and it's pretty cool. Basically, you progress through a series of battles, finishing in a final boss encounter. At the start of a conquest, you select your commander and 3 sets of starting units. All conquests reward you with shards, which can be used to unlock various items within the conquest mode. It's an interesting mix of genres, although with varying degrees of success. But overall, thumbs up, surprisingly fun. In addition to new commanders, there's also an enhanced groove ability that allows you to charge up to a second tier for an even stronger effect. This, as well as new commander balancing, helps add some much needed depth to the game and makes more commanders plausible in PvP, so that's all great. Speaking of commanders, we are introduced to a variety of new commanders, and we are essentially adding 1.5 new factions. The Outlaws receive a very welcome reskin, but many of the units resemble existing units from other factions or just have really minor adjustments. A handful of new unit types and structures are also introduced, and while some of these offer some interesting functionalities, they're actually quite niche. For example, the frogs are kind of like the ocean's version of dogs and can pull units directionally, which is unique but not so helpful in most circumstances. One of my favorite new structures allows land units to transform into water units and vice versa, adding a significant layer of flexibility. Additionally, welcome balance changes have been made to trebuchets, golems, dragons, and more, ensuring that no commander gets one-shots on the road by an enraged dragon. Oh, and the best new feature of all, the AI finally doesn't cheat in Fog of War. Remarkable. The map editor makes a triumphant return and is as impressive as ever. It boasts several positive minor changes, primarily more options and flexibility, as well as convenient tools like element mirroring. While Wargroove 2 did add some new content, on the other hand, it also made some pretty notable removals. These include the co-op campaign, arcade mode, puzzle mode, and more, as we'll discuss later. These omissions are unfortunate, but who knows, they might be addressed in a future DLC. Nevertheless, their absence at launch is a noticeable drawback, and I'm kind of confused as to why they would do this, because a lot of these modes, including puzzle mode and arcade mode, seem to be favorites by the community, so it's kind of a head scratcher. Okay, so now we have a broad understanding of the additions and the exclusions from the game. Let's delve into some of the issues that have come up. Number 1, story and tone. The sequel struggles with maintaining a consistent and engaging narrative. The tone feels disjointed, occasionally veering into cringy territory. While efforts were made to introduce an overarching arc and character development, which was missing from the first game, the writing still falls short. There was a few times while playing where I just looked at my screen and was shouting what is even happening. I won't spoil much, but in one of the campaigns, there is a minor character death that they played up to this huge moment, and it was just so weird because the character doesn't have a unique model. Like, he just looked like every other soldier. So I didn't even know who this character was and why people cared. It was just bizarre. I mean, if you're trying to make me feel invested in a character, I think the bare minimum is having them use a unique model. Anyway, there's just a number of examples like this throughout the campaigns. The story appeals tailored for a younger audience, which is perplexing given the genre's likely target demographic of players is probably age 20 and above. The lack of coherence, occasional bloating, and confusing moments contribute to an overall sense of directionlessness. Like the first game, there is a glaring absence of branching paths on the campaign map. But even more criminally, side missions, which were featured in the first game, were removed. This, combined with the inconsequential nature of stars now, greatly diminishes the replay value. The campaign feels more like an expansion rather than a true sequel, with minor differences and certain features removed. Number 2, lack of feedback incorporation. The sequel disappointingly ignores feedback from the original game, especially concerning online multiplayer matches and commander individuality. The online multiplayer base is some of the strongest supporters of the game, and they were screaming for better matchmaking. Again, I have no idea why they didn't make this a priority. If you have an existing product and want to make a sequel, fan feedback is the first place you should go for ideas. But I don't know, benefit of the doubt, maybe they were working with a small sample size. And number 3, unfortunately, the AI here is still not the best. In fact, aside from the differences in Fog of War, it seems pretty much the same. Their inadequacies persist, and they pretty much have a failure to adopt or reinforce strategies based on what's actually happening in-game. This is unfortunate because this was a pretty big complaint in the first game again, and it makes you wonder why they didn't make it a priority to fix. Number 4, unfinished release. The release version of Wargroove 2 is plagued by bugs and oversights, and this just indicates a really thorough lack of testing. I don't usually care about this kind of thing, but I got the game like 2 weeks after release, and I encountered a number of game-breaking bugs. This goes beyond just typical buggy releases, as the game includes remnants of test assets and critical errors in objectives. It's just unfortunate because is it too much to ask for a finished, no bug release in 2023? Basically, for so much time in development and with such a dedicated fan base, it just feels meh, like half a step forward instead of a full step. Most of the voice acting, units, and graphics are the exact same from the original. I mean, remember the days when a jump from 1 to 2 in a mainline gaming series was a big deal, graphically, tonally, and gameplay-wise? I totally understand budget constraints and that this wasn't a AAA title, but I can't help but compare this release to sequels like Metal Gear Solid 2 to 3 and Halo 1 to 2. These were huge jumps. It just seems like recently developers are putting less and less effort into sequels because they know people will pay for them. It's the same trap that Marvel fell into, and they eventually got diminishing returns, which is especially depressing considering all the heart and love there is in this franchise. It's just sad to see this happen to Wargroove 2. I wasn't expecting major leaps and bounds, but yeah, to me this game felt like an expansion, not a sequel. While Wargroove 2 introduces some noteworthy additions like new campaigns, commanders, and an interesting conquest mode, it falls short in some pretty key areas, especially considering the very long development for this. There is some good here, the sequel's gameplay enhancements such as improved groove ability and the new unit types brings some freshness to the experience, but the overall execution leaves something to be desired. The absence of certain beloved features, the niche nature of the additions, and the feeling that the game narrowly meets expectations just contributes to the feeling that this game is just going through the motions. While there's hope that future DLCs may address some of these concerns, as of now, for a lot of people, the first game surpasses the sequel, both in terms of content and pricing. For enthusiasts of the series, especially those fond of the original Wargroove campaign gameplay, or those intrigued by the new Conquest mode, the sequel may be worth considering. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this was a money grab, but there were some baffling decisions made here. I also wouldn't say that this game is anything horrendous and it deserves to be burned with fire, but I will say it just feels lackluster, and is it wrong to just want something a bit more? So sorry this was a bit different from my usual content. I also don't like being so negative on things. I mean, I think there are two sides, but I just had to get this off my chest. Anyway, I really appreciate all the support. If you feel inclined to, please subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. It can turn this from a monthly thing into a weekly thing. I'm still getting this channel off the ground, so please also like and subscribe. It really, really helps. And as always, if you have any suggestions about what you want me to cover next time, please just let me know. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.